Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey champions, thank you for joining us today on the Champion Within. I am really excited to share my guest with you today. Rose Harper is here with me. If you have not figured out who she is yet, she's on TikTok and you need to go over there and listen, follow these videos. I went to the page and right away started laughing because I felt like I knew Rose. I said, how are Rose and I not friends? You are going to love the content she is putting out there. And you know, I do a little stalking. I started watching all of the videos and looking into what she does. Of course, she has some connection to sports, and we're going to weave that in here in our conversation. But you're going to learn so much more than just some mindset and sports things here today. So get ready to, I would probably get your pen out if I were you and start writing some of these things down. You know, I will drop the links in the show notes and she'll share them at the end. So you can follow her on TikTok and all the other places where she is. But I'm excited to learn myself. I think you are definitely going to steal some things that Rose has to share with us today. Rose, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I've looked at all of your content as well, and I'm so excited to be here. I love what you're doing, so it's great to collaborate.
Well, thank you. Rose, we were, looking at each other's things. I think what I first wrote to you was, you had me at Thanksgiving dinner, ask these questions and see what happens. Before we even go a little bit deeper on that, I was cracking up because I pictured myself at Thanksgiving and asking my mother-in-law some questions, and she would look at me saying, Kate, are you kidding me right now? But it is kind of my style to just sometimes say things like that. So I was like, maybe I do need to steal some of these questions from Rose. Tell my listeners a little bit about who you are now, and then we'll go back to that athletic piece of your journey.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a mom and I'm married. I have 3 kids. I just opened my own law firm and I do estate planning for parents as well as business owners. And I also do personal injury. Really, my estate planning practice, I've been talking about that a lot on TikTok because I'm able to connect with other moms really easily on there. The way I got into estate planning was actually putting a plan into place for my husband and I and our family. And going through that process, I realized, wow, this is really important. And I don't think a lot of families realize that they could be at risk if they don't get a plan in place. So it's become my mission. I do a lot of educational content and try to put on webinars and things so that parents can at least learn about estate planning. I'll do consultations, and that way they can determine, what they might need for their unique family situation, because every family is a little bit different. I'm really on that mission now and I love it. I'm so excited to be able to provide this service.
So tell my listeners what exactly I'm talking about when you said at Thanksgiving, ask these questions related to the estate planning a little bit here. Or maybe it was, I think you might have done something similar at Christmas too. What would these questions be that maybe you don't want to ask? But as you just said, it's important for you to ask these questions and get a plan in place.
Yeah. So, part of my TikTok is that, thank you so much for that huge compliment that you felt like you knew me from my TikTok, because TikTok, I guess I'm not as super professional person. I'm more laid back and relaxed. I'm really just on there. I share a lot about myself, my family, and I'm looking to connect with people. But the questions that I was talking about, I was being kind of coy. A lot of people think of estate planning, or often estate planning attorneys can come across as really like dry and serious. I mean, you are planning for what's going to occur after your death. So yes, it can be really serious and emotional. And often, I'll cry, the clients will cry, we're making all this plan, but it's like in a positive way because they're giving this gift to their family. My TikTok videos, I try to make it funny, but also get people to think, about, wow, like you said, maybe this is something I need to, think about and talk about with my family because we avoid these topics. And so in order to, make it funny, I was like, oh, ask your in-laws if they, who they're giving their inheritance to and if they documented it. Of course, you wouldn't want to like come across like that. But if you're making a joke, it kind of like opens up the topic and in like a funny way. And then people can start thinking about, wait a minute, we actually don't have anything in place and maybe we should figure that out, because if we don't have a plan in place, it can leave your family open to conflict, a high cost, and some other things that we can talk about as well.
Yeah. So of course, everyone should know that although Rose is really fun to watch on TikTok, she is very professional. I did do some looking into her. I'm not just going to bring anybody on the podcast here. So when you were working with her for this situation and planning, she's not, being crazy and doing silly things like TikTok. But I think the fact that you can do that, and I don't want to say, make light of it, but almost make people feel comfortable, because it is an uncomfortable conversation, an uncomfortable journey to even think about it, let alone plan and ask these questions. I'm just going to share this. My husband is the type to be like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't even want to think about that. I will often say, if something happens to me, you need to find someone to steer the ship, because I feel like I am the one who does a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, he is amazing and he has a lot of strengths that I do not. Right. And that's why we complement each other so well.
Yeah.
But there are other areas where I think, okay, somebody, and I will say to my kids who will also be like, stop, but I'm like, seriously, I want dad to be happy. And who's going to do this, that, and the other thing, Yeah. And the same with our parents and different people. It's a tough conversation. And when you see Rose on TikTok, that's a great way for people to just feel comfortable, because people don't like to feel uncomfortable. So when they can kind of think, okay, she's a mom like me, so I do like that, but I do want people to know that you actually are and can do this. So I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way when they're listening to the podcast. But so I think that we'll come back to that a little bit, how people can work with you a little bit later in the conversation. But let's go back a little bit further into your journey before you started this work. I know that we were talking that you were an athlete before you became a mom and all these different things.
Yes.
When did you really start playing volleyball on a serious level that you thought you would want to play in college? Were you a youth player, middle school, high school? What did that journey look like for you?
So I'm not super tall.
Okay.
I'm not like, I'm 5'6". I started playing volleyball. I didn't start until 7th grade. Our school's volleyball team was really great. We had amazing coaches. I made so many great friends playing. It was really fun. So it's something that I wanted to continue on with after high school. I just didn't know exactly what that would look like. I actually had my first child before I graduated high school. I was a senior. Okay. And that kind of altered my path forward. So the superintendent of my school district met with me, and she kind of told me her journey of how she pursued higher education and was able to support her family over the course of times when maybe her husband was out of work or things like that. And it really encouraged me and inspired me, like, okay, I need to pursue higher education. I actually went to community college nearby where I was living. I joined the volleyball team there. My parents, supported me to do it. They were like, you know what? Yes, you had a baby, but you're going to school and you need an outlet to, gain back yourself and, still be yourself. So they helped me by watching my son so I could participate in the volleyball team at the community college, a local four-year school. The coach would have some of their players come play with the community college team. Mm-hmm. So that's how I met their players and their coach. Jennifer Addison, she's amazing. And really, yes, I'm a good player, but really I think it was more, I'm hardworking, I'm consistent, I'm reliable. So she gave me a scholarship. I got a half scholarship for volleyball.
And what school was this that you went to?
It's now Mercy University. At the time, it was Mercy College.
Okay.
And so I was able to live at home still, commute to college. I got a half volleyball scholarship and half academic scholarship.
And that was D2, right?
Yeah, D2. Yep. The volleyball team at Mercy University It was such an amazing experience. I met women from all over. There was women who had immigrated from Jamaica, Haiti, Peru, Ecuador. I felt like, oh my God, like some of the people on my team could have been like, I don't know, playing professionally, like beach volleyball and stuff.
Right.
So I was just like, wow, I can't believe
I,
I
I
had this
want to just say
opportunity.
this. I feel like you're selling yourself short a little bit here. You're like, well, I was kind of good. I think you're probably way better than you're being honest with us right now.
I'm passionate. I love it. I'm like the personality. Look, I'm a personality hire or something like in that situation. So it's like, if they needed to fill a spot, if someone got hurt, like I could fill in and the ball's not going to drop, right? I'm going to make sure the ball gets over the net. I'm going to make sure the ball stays in on my serve. I'm going to scoop the ball up. So, and then just like always encouraging everybody, trying to bring the team together.
Rose, there's so many things that I have to pull out of this. I'm going to jump in here because my brain is just like, oh my gosh, all of these things. I'm going to actually go all the way back to the beginning here when you were saying volleyball. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and we have so many more. I don't know if I'm ever going to let you go, Rose. We have a lot to talk about. When you started playing volleyball, you said, my friends, it was so much fun. I just loved it. And then I continued playing in high school. Anyone who's listening right now, if you are a parent, if you are a coach, if you're one of my athletes I work with, or you're just a random person that listens to my podcast right now, maybe you're not even in sports, you're a business owner, whatever, you need to pay attention to what is fun and what you love to do, the people who you are surrounding yourself with, because I heard you say that. And then you said it a couple more times when you were at the community college. And then these women who were on your team when you went to the D2 school, that these women were just so great and it was just so fun. I don't think we pay attention enough. Do you remember maybe a moment or a story either from when you were young that you realized this is so fun, or maybe it was high school or that college, community college, or, when you were on scholarship where you just felt this is just so fun playing volleyball?
Yes, I guess I was always naturally inclined. Like I enjoyed doing this. Let me just keep doing it. And there were so many other benefits. Like, yes, I'm saying fun, but the truth is I was, remaining healthy. I was disciplined, the camaraderie, like there were just so many
even outside. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a game.
Yeah. Yes. Like there are so many benefits to being a part of the team and learning a sport. In college also, one of my professors was actually a priest. I asked him, I said, Professor Franco, what's the secret to happiness?
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
So he told me, he said, find something you love to do, figure out how to make money at it, and live nearby where you work. That was it. Those were the 3 steps. I thought, that seems easy enough. That doesn't seem too hard. I guess I kind of really took that on moving forward in my life. And I think that keeping things simple, but, like you talked about, kind of the things that you're naturally inclined to do, if that's where your passion is, if that's where you're having fun. I mean, the thing is that really it depends, right? Because some people can claim they're having fun doing things that are really harmful to them.
Very
right?
true.
Like in high school, if you're getting into a bad crowd and you're doing things that put you at risk, so that's why I just caveat to say, well, like, yes, I'm saying fun, but really it was like all of these other positive things that made me feel better with who I was growing into.
Definitely. I think that is important to say because sometimes we say, well, it's just so fun, but it's important to make sure that it's healthy fun and it's good for you. Maybe it's more, the question could be if you were just in the flow and you're like, oh, I'm losing track of time here. We're playing volleyball or after the game, I'm hanging out with the team and things like that. And it's just so many other things that you gain, just the connections with the girls on the team and the women who you played with in college. I think that very important to remember because, you can't always just well, it's fun.
Yeah.
And you're going to get arrested.
Yes,
I've had to
exactly.
have that conversation with some students or people that I work with. Like, that's not the answer. So,
Yeah.
good point. Thank you for bringing it up. And Professor Franco, was it?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that, Professor Franco. We're all going to steal that one. Think about something that you love to do. Try to be close to home or make money from it and be close to home if possible for that. I love it. That's such a great 3-tip way to look at things. So
Yeah.
important. Now, do you do that within your business now? Are you close
I do. Well, even I think about that really, I feel like that really was a pivotal time in my life because after Mercy, my parents really wanted me to go on and become a teacher.
Hmm.
And I actually started a master's in education because in New York, you have to have your master's degree to teach in the public school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I started that program and I was miserable.
Hmm.
I was totally miserable in those classes. And at the same time, I don't come from a family of lawyers, but I did have one aunt who was a small town lawyer, not a businesswoman. Like she did a lot of free work for people. She passed away with nothing during my first year of law school, but I got to intern with her during that time when I was like really at this transition period in my life. I was trying, my parents had supported me so much to get to where I was.
Right.
I didn't want to disappoint them, but I was like, this is not what I want to be doing.
Hmm.
So I interned with my aunt, and during that internship, there was a lot of elderly people in the community in our small town that would call her for like a lot of random stuff, kind of law related, sometimes not, but like they would call her and she would just tell me to tell them, let them know I'm going to call them back. Give me 3 hours. And she would go research, like whatever it was, like whatever they were looking for information on, like this is what you need to do. This is the form you need. If you need me to, come in, I can help, whatever the case may be. She was such a resource to the elderly community where we lived.
Oh, okay.
And I thought like, wow, if my aunt is able to like look all this stuff up and help people, like maybe I'll be able to do that too. So that really inspired me to want to go to law school.
I love it.
Also at the same time at Mercy University, I was doing well in school and I joined an honors club. They had an honors club. And we used to meet for lunch every once in a while. And some of the people that I met in that little group, that mastermind, that was like a little mastermind group. So the people you surround yourself with matter, right?
Yes.
So within that group, a couple of them were going off to law school. And I remember I spoke to one of the people in the group and about even just admitting the idea that maybe I want to go. And he was like, oh, you're way smarter than me. If I'm going, there's no reason why you shouldn't go.
Okay.
So that also, like, all these things came together.
I love this. Let's be real for a minute. Stress is something we all deal with, right? Before work, during, after work, it's always there. But here's the thing. Not every stress busting tool works for everyone. I always say if we were all the same, life would be boring. That's why I put together the Stress Buster Guide. It has a few different options. Some you'll love, some maybe not so much. And that's okay. I want you to find what clicks for you. It's totally free. Honestly, it's my most downloaded resource for a reason. After the show, I want you to go to the show notes, click the link, and grab it so you can start feeling more in control. No matter when stress hits you, there is a tool for you to calm your nervous system. You deserve to make that happen for yourself. I'm rooting for you always. Now let's get back to the podcast chat. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I have so many things. When you were going into college, you said the superintendent helped you. I want to talk about that first. And we're coming back to this part where you were switching from teaching possibly into the law degree. One, I just want to give a shout out to that superintendent.
Dr. Castro. She's amazing.
Dr. Castro. Okay. And was that in New York?
Yes. And you'll see her on my LinkedIn because like we are still connected. I'm like, yes, Dr. Castro.
You might have to tag her. I don't know if she's still working, if she's still, in the school
she's
district.
Retired now.
Good for her. If she's living her best retired life, she deserves that. But I think it is so incredible that she had that conversation with you and she encouraged you to keep going because I'm not going to name drop anyone here, but when I was a teacher for 20 years, there were many girls who got pregnant. And I would always encourage those girls to keep going, finish high school for one. Some
Yeah,
people were telling them to drop out of high school. And
right.
there was a rare individual in their families. And sometimes, some of us would be saying you should keep going, but it wasn't commonplace. I
Right.
never liked that. I would always be the one, and other teachers, not just me, but to say, you need to keep going, but they didn't always have that support system there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say, there was never anyone up at the administrative level, at a superintendent level, that I've ever heard come and talk to a student. So how incredible of a
Yeah.
human that she is. And I'm a little jealous, that my students didn't have that. I had my first son before I was married. I was out of college and whatnot, but I was a brand new teacher. And that was overwhelming. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not married yet. And there was like so many things there. And then when my students would get pregnant, even though it was different for me and them, I would think like I was actually finishing my master's degree when I got pregnant,
Oh,
and I still kept going and finishing. Just like you, I had parents that were very supportive, and my husband now, but we weren't married, we weren't living together. There was all the things. And I used to look at those girls and think, you can do these things. Like we could help you. But I just love that your superintendent did that. And awesome that your parents told you to get into volleyball, things like that. I think that there's a mindset shift when you get in to do those things. Do you remember having your own mindset where you had to manage all of that when you were at the community college and then at Mercy? Was there anything you did that maybe you still do now within your business? Maybe you didn't even know that it was mindset, or maybe it was like a skill you gained during that time that now you use as a business owner.
I think the resilience, the perseverance, the temporary sacrifices for long-term goals, those are all things that you learn while playing sports. Because even going back to high school, right? We used to start practice in the summer and we used to run 2 miles. Our coaches would make us run 2 miles. Shout out to Mrs. Cook. We had to run 2 miles before practice even started.
Sure.
And guess what? That's why we were really successful, because during the season, when everybody else was tired by their third set, we had energy.
Yeah, Mrs. Cook had you all ready to
We
go.
had
And the rest of those
yeah.
other teams were like, oh, it's the beginning of the season. Mrs. Cook was like, I told you those 2 miles would pay off.
Yeah. And even like, making it through the whole season, not losing steam.
Right.
Maybe you had an injury, maybe something happened in your personal life, right? So all those things from a young age, you're learning in sports, because regardless of, I had an argument with my boyfriend or girlfriend or my best friend, right? But I have a game tonight. I have to let me focus on what's going on here. Let me do my best, getting your mindset realigned with
Right.
whatever your goal is. So that's how sports, and that's something you develop over time. It's not like, you join T-ball at 5 and, and you have those skills, but
Right.
over the course of your life, you keep developing those skills, taking on more responsibility, because maybe you're a student athlete and maybe you also work. Or like me, like I was working, I had my son and I was in college and playing a sport.
Right.
So time management skills and things like that. Although my parents joked with me, because I graduated college summa cum laude, and they didn't even know. We got to graduation, they were like, "You're graduating with high honors?" I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "We never saw you studying. Like, how did you do it?" But it's like one of those things, like, I guess I'm like an auditory learner. I really just needed to go to class, listen to what the professors were saying, and execute.
Yeah.
But everyone learns differently. So you just have to know what your learning style is. For me, and I did horrible in online classes in college.
Okay.
They were not for me, because it's like it's a lot of independent work.
Right.
So actually, now that we're talking about it, you're putting connections in place for me. I love the team sports. So that's an interesting connection that I hadn't made. And another thing actually I want to talk with you about to see if this is something you see or like what your opinion is on it. So for example, like I stopped playing volleyball pretty much after college because, you're figuring out getting a full-time job and navigating your life or whatever.
Life.
And I had my son already. I was a single mom. But, so like really finding my way with keeping up with physical activity in a way that I enjoyed it was challenging because it was always team sports for me, and it was always sports. I never really got super into weightlifting or the gym. I got a little bit into running, but I used to go running until I went to law school, and then my schedule totally changed and goals or whatever. So that kind of went out the window. Actually, now at this point in my life, I'm really trying to focus more on making sure I take time to get my movement in. I think it's so important. And not only for physical health, but mental health and emotional health. But it's just interesting to me. I just like realizing that about myself. Well, I played team sports from, 4 to 21. It's been hard for me since then, figuring out, how do I find that fun, that love, that, the thing
I'd
that I
be
can do.
curious, if you're not sticking with it, are you doing it by yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when you go to like an exercise class, it's not the same.
Right. And, sometimes people think that you have to do it like that through an exercise class. Don't get me wrong. I like some exercise classes, but sometimes I don't. I actually did team sports all the way. And it was interesting when you were saying some of the things there, because I think each athlete, each student is an individual learner and they're unique in their own way. It's so important for coaches and teachers to be able to differentiate that to win and have success, because although the whole team is running the mile, you have to know each girl at the back of that serving line. You have to know how to coach that girl. Sometimes you need to shut your mouth as the coach, and sometimes you need to joke around. Sometimes you need to give her a specific cue for volleyball, so I think everyone learns differently. And then we have this sense of identity when we are an athlete. When we finish that journey, we lose that a little bit. And life, like you were saying, life happens, and we have to do these other things and pay bills and to get our job. We have kids, I don't have time to go be on a rec basketball team or go, play volleyball. And I think sometimes people encourage people, oh, you can go ref, you can coach your kids. Yes, but what's for me?
Yeah.
You need to do something for me. And the reason I was asking, do you do it by yourself? The group exercise could work for some people, not everyone, especially if you're into competitive things. Sometimes that doesn't work. But accountability, so some sort of accountability partner, whether you're with them or it's some sort of connection, even if it's a Nike running app, or if you worked with someone and they keep you accountable, to literally rewire your brain. We could have a whole conversation on this. You have to do that when you start taking care of you again and do some different things there. Then you show up differently in your business, for your kids, with your husband. I actually had to do it for myself, because when I left teaching in 2021, I mean, people say to me now, you're a totally different person. I mean, I even look different. Like,
wow.
Physically, I'm healthier. Mentally, I'm definitely healthier. And I had to literally change things like mindset, but I couldn't do it by myself. It was that accountability piece. And I think that's something that athletes have to consider when we leave, because we're moving so much too.
Yes.
And when we stop because we're busy and, life happens. I know for myself, I really think that I was in a depression, not that it was diagnosed, but I mean, there was definitely some things that I was dealing with, and it was probably because I wasn't getting enough movement. I wasn't eating healthy. I was, pretending like I was in some ways, but
yes. And all of those things like add up, right? It's so funny. When I was like really heavy into athletics in college, I remember this like MTV show came on, True Life or something like that. There was this woman, and she literally was carrying around ranch dressing in her purse, like to eat out with it. And I was like, that is so gross. Who would even do that? Like, I don't, in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, like, there's your problem right there. But fast forward a decade later, I love ranch now. It's just funny because your habits change. When you're active and you're moving, like I wouldn't have even thought of using that as a dressing, like, but anyway, this is just a simple, like a cute example. But yeah, to your point, I feel like when you're moving and your mindset and lifestyle, like everything just follows.
The good news is that you can rewire your brain. And
Yeah.
it's tricky for people because you can't see inside your brain, but you literally can change the neural pathways. I mean, it's science. I was forced to do this in many ways because my youngest son has a uniquely beautiful brain. Dyslexia, ADHD. It is how I got into this world of mindset because I was forced to become his fiercest advocate.
Yeah.
Because the school system, even though I was a teacher, it was just kind of crazy in that area. And then it started to work for him. And dyslexia, things like that. We cracked the code with some educational help, of course. But then I started to say, I can help other people do this, athletes and business. And then I did it for myself. And it takes work. It's ongoing work,
Yeah.
but like you're saying, your brain starts to develop these habits of like, I can bring this ranch with me or that,
Yeah.
literally have to retrain your brain. It's an interesting thing when it happens and other people just see the end result. They're like, well, how'd you do that? I want to do it. I'm like,
Right.
you want to do the work because it's uncomfortable.
It's the same thing with law school. People ask me, or I feel like people assume like, oh, you're a lawyer, so you must be like the most intelligent, person or whatever. But really, are you willing to do the work? Right? If you're willing to put in the time and the effort and the risk of taking out your student loans and all of these things on your ability to complete the program and pass the bar exam, you have to believe in yourself.
Oh, I
And
love that you
you
just
have to
said
be
that.
willing to put the work in. Yeah.
What did you do for yourself there? Did you have anything that helped you believe in yourself?
Definitely when I was in college, outside of academics, I was reading a lot of mindset books. I was reading a lot of books put out by other success. For example, how I was watching a show and I had that judgmental thought about someone. That's not helpful to me. And that's not a good thing to be doing. Catching my thoughts that were negative or whatever the case may be as I had them, and then working on immediately replacing them with a more positive, impactful thought.
Yeah, so just reframing it.
Yes.
And being aware of it in itself is mindfulness and a mindset shift to be able to reframe it. That's a great tip. That can be in any area. If you're pursuing a degree in something, if you're an athlete, if you're a parent or you're a coach and you're feeling yourself, because we all judge. If you feel that happening, you have a choice. You can continue to do that, or you can pause and think, can I reframe this? There are times where when a thought comes into your brain, like, this is toxic, or I don't feel good around this person, you need to pause and think, why? Why do I not feel good? Because I stayed in a job, for example, for way too long that was toxic. And that's where I want to come back with you right now. When you were feeling that teaching area wasn't your space. One, did your parents think you were going to be a good teacher? How did that happen? And then when did you think, oh, I don't really like this? I've had athletes tell me, well, my mom told me that I'd be a great softball player and that's why I play. I'm like, do you like softball? And like, I've had other people, speaking of the working out, moms who have come to me and work with me one-to-one and say, and she will be fine that I say this because I love her. She's actually still a client of mine and she's like freaking fabulous. Came to me and said, Kate, I just had my second baby. I'm going to get back in shape. We're going to do all these things. All right, well, let's do this. And she, she was killing it. Mindset was her thing. She started a running program. She started saying to me, I'm outside running in the morning. Even when it's cold, I'm bundling up. I'm in the basement on the treadmill. We're going on and on and on. Maybe the second month working together and we're on a call. She says, I freaking hate running. And I just didn't say anything for a second or two. I said, what? I hate running, like real loud. She was like angry. I'm like, okay, why aren't we running? Why are we running all the time? Well, somebody told me the only way for me to get into shape and feel good is if I start a running program. I just started like, girl, that's not true. Running it can be good, but you don't have to do that. She totally switched and started going to a gym and doing kettlebells and different things. And so now she is much healthier mentally and physically. And she didn't want to admit it to me. Ironically, she is very similar to you and I with like her first child. And her journey is very similar. This was her older child at sports. Somebody on the sideline said, well, this is the only way you're going to get back in shape. So in her brain, she had this thought and she didn't even want to tell me that. I wish she would have told me because we would have saved so much time.
Right.
And we still joke. I'll say to her, is this like running? So, but anyway, I think that we have to realize, is this about us? Is this what other people are telling us? So for you with the teaching, Did your parents see something? I'm sure they were coming from a place of love, but did they see something that they thought would be great? And then you were like in a class, you're like, well, I don't really like this. How did it happen?
I mean, I'm like a people person, so you kind of have to enjoy like interacting with people. I'm good with kids. Also, I was a mom and they just wanted like a stable, secure career path where I could provide for my son and also have the same schedule as him. I think that's really what their like mindset was. I totally understand. I mean, they're helping me get through. I'm like, they're like, you need something like a guarantee thing. Although honestly, it's not like, I feel like the teaching career path, I've seen so many of my friends, like it's really challenging. It actually is not always stable. It's really, really difficult. I'm glad that I was able to realize like that wasn't my calling. That's not what I was meant to be doing. Although I will say that with regard to estate planning now, the educational piece I love.
Yeah, I feel like you do teach people in many ways.
So there is a part of it that I really love. It just felt like I wasn't working towards anything. I was like, I'm paying a lot of money to be here and I'm not learning anything.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's more so what it was. I needed more of a challenge. I needed something different. And what I realized is that for me to be a great mom, I need to enjoy what I'm doing all day, to come home and be there for my son in the way I want to be.
Yeah,
so if I'm forced to do a career that I really am not enjoying at all, am I really going to come home happy? I just felt like it would lead to a lot of other problems that I didn't want to have. I was willing to bet on myself. Only each person only knows from my belief, what God has in store for us, what the capabilities or skill sets that God has put into our lives. So I just wanted to dive deep. I felt like I could do this and I wanted it. And so I went for it.
I love it. Again, so many great things there. Somebody who's listening right now, if you're unhappy, let me tell you, you are not showing up as the best version of yourself. I lived that life for a long time thinking, I'm just going to drive home with the radio down and I'm going to come down from this day because my job was very challenging. I was a really good teacher and I was there for 20 years. I think a lot of those years I was very happy, but we weren't supported by the administrative staff and there was fights, there was gang activity, there was drugs, there was weapons, there was a lot going on. And I loved my students. There was a lot of wonderful kids in that building who brought in things that were out of their control. That there was a lot of things that were happening that none of us could control and we weren't being supported. There was no consequences, all the things. And then I would think, I'll just turn the music down and, reset myself. And come on, that's not happening. I tricked myself. I think I was doing the best I could with the resources I had and my kids are okay, but my kids are way better off now that I decided to bet on myself, like Rose just said, and took a risk. Rose, I'm like wondering, is your middle name Brave? Because I feel like you're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm switching my major, I'm doing this. Because I think you had mentioned it earlier, you need to bet on yourself. You need to take that risk. People fear that because it is uncomfortable. I think there's so much to learn from your journey and people need to think about their own journey, even though it might not be the same as yours.
Right.
But they can connect because right now somebody's listening to this thinking, I'm a little bit afraid to do that because I'm afraid that my parents think I should be doing this and I don't really want to, but they think I should. But if you're happy.
Well, also, it just might not even be the right path. You just don't know. What I would want to encourage people to do is just take the first steps. For example, you stayed in your career, right? When maybe you didn't want to or shouldn't have, but maybe by just taking some time, people don't have to fully change their major. Take one class in a different subject that you think you might want to pursue. See how that goes.
Very good.
That could be your elective. You can always remain in your major. My son, who I had when I was a teenager, he's now 20 and he's in college.
Right.
And he didn't know what he wanted to do. I was like, major in computer science, right? Great career path. I did the same thing my parents did.
Okay.
After his first year, he changed majors, which his school that he was at didn't have the major he wanted to do. So he had to change schools. That's a huge decision. He changed majors and changed schools. And he lost a little bit of time because of that. He's doing so great.
Good.
He's doing so great. He loves what he's doing now. He's getting better grades. Things are just falling into place for him. But it took that. He had to make the decision. He had to say, you know what, this is not for me and I need to make this change. And we figured it out and we navigated the transition. But taking that first step to just like, you know what, let me try something different. And you only have one life to live and you might as well go for it.
100%.
Go for it, whatever you want to do. I just think
taking that first step is really important. I tell people 1% better. You don't have to do all of the things. So if you're thinking, well, maybe one course, one thing in your sport, do one thing in your business to reach your goal and then decide, do I like this? Maybe I want to go for a run and decide I don't like running. You know, you do one thing and then you can decide. You know, I will say that even though I often say I stayed too long, I was exactly where I was meant to be every single step of the way. I taught through COVID and now I do things virtually, which I don't know if I would be as good if I didn't have to figure out how to teach during the COVID era, which I didn't enjoy. No one did, but I figured it out. And you said something about navigating through for your son. My son is a freshman in college. And when he was looking at all of the different schools, and I say this to people I work with all the time, my mom friends, I call them the mom tribes, which I think is a missing piece because you don't really want to do this. But when you're looking at colleges, I think it's important to tell these seniors and your own kids, one, let's make sure you like it when we're looking at it. But two, if something happens and you change your major, it's okay.
Yeah.
If something happens and you need to switch schools, you can. Of course, we're going to figure it out. It might not be like perfect sunshine and rainbows, but you can. It's a huge decision. And it's so overwhelming. And I remember saying that to my son on a tour. We were actually at Seton Hall. He thought he wanted to go there and because he loves basketball and he just wanted to be at the games. And when we get there, he thought, I don't really want to be at Seton Hall. I don't like it here. And I said, okay, I knew you weren't going to like it here, but we're here because you wanted to see it. And it's important to tell people that, you know, and I just think that we don't say that because we're so excited. Like, what's going to go to, you know, you have to remember that it's okay. And I'm glad that your son figured it out. Good for him.
Yes. And each person is so different. That's so interesting that you brought that up because, for example, when I was applying to law schools, I got into a top 20 law school. I decided not to go there.
Okay.
When I went there, it felt cold. It felt depressing. They weren't helpful to me because no one there takes scholarships like I needed. Anyway, I ended up choosing Seton Hall Law School in New Jersey.
I'm like, he didn't like Seton Hall. You're like, I went to Seton Hall.
I love Seton Hall. So why did what their law school is a separate campus and each person's different. Yeah. So I loved Seton Hall. So why did I choose them? Because I could remain closer to my family. The campus was new. It was bright. Everyone was so nice. They were accessible, very responsive. And I felt like, okay, I could succeed here and they want me here.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how each person is so different? The people were so nice when we were on the tour, but he thought it was going to be different. He wanted he's at Penn State and he wanted a big type of college vibe. Seton Hall for undergrad is actually smaller than the high school he attended. So he thought, this seems not even like high schoolish for me. And he just thought, probably because he didn't even read all the information, even though I was like, the things. My daughter now, who's a junior, is very different. And I think she will love that small, intimate, she'll know everyone on campus. They will know her. And that is just who they are. I think that's important. It's so funny that you went to Seton Hall and I'm just like, yeah, you didn't love it. And nobody can be sending me messages like, hey, Seton Hall, you know, because we're hearing both sides of it. But amazing. So I do want to, before we get towards the end here, I want to hear a little bit more about your business and how can people work with you? If they called you, if I said, hey, Rose, you know what? I saw your TikTok and I've been thinking about it. I was laughing at the videos, but you know, you're right. I do need to make some sort of plan for me. And, you know, my mom, my dad, we don't have a plan. You know, if I'm that person, I just think you seem cool. I have kids too. What happens when I reach out to you? What do we do? How do I reach out to you? Tell us all the things.
So they can call me 201-377-2337 or email info@roseharperlaw.com. I'm redoing my website right now, so it should be,
Okay.
but there is one up, but I actually made it myself on Canva.
Love it. That's cool.
So I'm having a company do a better one, but roseharperlaw.com. And basically when people reach out to me, what I do is I send them an intake packet. So that way we can do a family wealth planning session. That's a working session. We'll either be in person or on video. And we really dive into your personal family dynamics and then also the assets you have. What would happen with no plan in place? I walk that through with everybody versus what are your goals? So what are your goals for your family? What are your goals with regard to your assets? And then how might we accomplish that? We typically do flat rate plans. That way people aren't scared to email me or call me. If you're going with an attorney that's billing by the hour, you might be hesitant to ask a question. I don't want that. I want open communication. I want regular communication. Call me, text me, email me. I'm very accessible. That way you feel comfortable and you know what's happening each stage. We've kind of streamlined the process. That way we have that initial session. You pick which plan you want to move forward with, or you say, you know what, I need a little more time, let's see. But usually people move forward because at least getting a basic plan in place, you really need to have that. That way it avoids family conflict.
It's if someone didn't have a plan, what would happen? Because some people are like, well, what would happen? Be honest with people, because I think sometimes people aren't willing to admit it.
Yeah. So if you have no plan in place, guess what? The government has a plan for you. And it's not ideal. It's, the government's doing the best they can. They say, okay, if you have no plan in place, we'll figure something out. So these are going to be the rules, right? And each state is different. What would happen is, so in terms of the intestacy laws, that's what it's called, that would determine who will get your assets. But what will also happen is a family member is going to have to petition the court. So you're going to have to go through the litigation process. And even in the most amazing, harmonious families, there's something about the court process that brings out conflict. And because you didn't document what you want in terms of who's going to raise your kids, who's going to get your stuff, you didn't document it. Well, I'm sure your in-laws and the other in-laws, everyone's going to have a different opinion about what you wanted. So that's why documenting what you want really helps your family avoid conflict. And then the other thing with the court process, it's time consuming. It's very costly. It can be between 3 and 7% of the gross estate. So if you have $1 million worth of assets that's passing through probate court, that's $30,000 to $70,000. And you can avoid that by planning, by getting a trust into place for your family. Those are some of the things that we touch on. So some people are saying, well, I really don't have that many assets that are going to go through probate court, and I don't want to avoid probate court, but at least I need to document what I want to avoid conflict with my family. Yeah. So that's like a will-based plan. Versus if you realize, what, I want my family to be able to grieve and not have to worry about court, and also not have the public nature of surrogates court, right. Because anyone can go down to the courthouse, it's public filings, find out what you own, who's going to get it, and when they're inheriting it. The other issue is that with the state's plan, oftentimes people can inherit at the age of 18. So if you get $1 million at 18, that might negatively impact your decision making. It leaves you vulnerable to predators and things like that want to take advantage. Really getting that trust in place to help your family avoid probate court can help alleviate those things.
Yeah, absolutely. All important things for people to consider. I know it's not a topic that people are always like, oh, let's go do this, but it is important. I think just like you said, just not wanting to have people arguing and doing all of those things afterwards, that in itself. And then that 18-year-old thing, I would be worried. Just like I said, someone needs to steer the ship. Yeah. God forbid something happens when you're that young. It's a lot to put on a kid. I want someone else to help them. It's something that I think is worth having the discussion. And as I said, I think, I didn't know Rose before this. I just stalk the people who come and say, can I be on the podcast? Or if I find them saying, hey, come be on the podcast, I always look into them first. And this is literally the first conversation that we had. And I really feel like we could talk about so many different things. So I know if someone reached out to you, that they would feel that as well. And that is important. when you're talking about this type of stuff. So,
and that was really my goal with like opening my own firm. I want to be a community resource. I want to build those connections.
Your aunt would be so proud. You're probably very similar from how you were describing her.
Yes, absolutely. That's the goal. Like, I want to build a community, and that way people also with the flat rate packages, like in a couple of years, if something changes, reach out to me. Let's update your plan. Let's make sure it's actually working for where your family is now. I think that's a misconception too. A lot of people think, okay, once I get this done, I'm done for life. Well, no. Have you bought more property? Have you had more children? Have things changed? You want to make sure that you're updating it every few years if something changes.
Yeah, that makes very good sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Rose, for sharing all of that with us. I am going to ask you our last question that I ask all of our guests, and we love you, so we don't want you to be gone forever. But if you had the chance to either go back to a day or a moment in time or go forward, where would you go and what would you do for that day?
Well, as we've thoroughly discussed, I'm definitely a forward moving person, right? I'm a forward thinker. So I wouldn't go backwards, even though I've had so many like interesting, deep, amazing experiences in my life. I would move forward. I mean, I do try to be very present minded.
Sure.
And I don't want to wish away my life because the journey is, where it's at.
100%.
But moving forward, I really just want to experience things with my kids, like getting to see my kids, at their graduation day, at their weddings, having, children themselves, just those milestones for them, I'm really looking forward to. So any one of those days would really be, I guess, what I would
peak. Yeah, that would be cool to see that. Yeah, I think you're right. I come up with these random questions for each season, and I'm like, I don't know, because I love the present moment too, of course, with the mindset stuff. And the journey, that's where it's at. But I think that would be cool. Just take a little peek, spend the day there and kind of be like, oh, look at this fun stuff that's happening. All this hard work paid off, and, it'd be kind of cool to just see who they are. And then back to where we are, you're like, all right, I can keep doing all this crazy, because some days as a mom, it can get a little like, whoa, this is a lot. But so it'd be nice to see one of those fun days, at one of those events. Cool answer.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I will definitely put the email, your phone number, and we'll put the website. And even if you get a new website, I can always update so people can click on the show notes. We can always update. I'm sure the website looks great, but you just tell us so people can find you and your TikTok. We will put that in the show links as well, so that people can go just see some of that, get to know you, and definitely should follow along there. You will not regret it. And thank you, Rose.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was wonderful.
It was great. And we will definitely be talking again soon. There's so many things we could talk about. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us on the Champion Within today. I want you to have an amazing rest of your day and crush your week ahead.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.